Anyway, so what we're going to do in this particular session is go through certain portions of NumPy that we left off. Right, and then what we'll also do is we'll begin with pandas, and hopefully we'll cover some good ground around that also. Okay, so let's look at NumPy indexing and selection. Now, so we have already seen some forms of indexing and selection already, right? So when I mean some forms of indexing and selection, if we have a certain array and we want to select portions of it, we basically can do it through the square bracket that we've already seen, right? So we have seen bits and pieces of that already. Now we're just going to blow out in certain areas and see what we can do in that, right? So in this particular case, I'm going to use this one, NumPy indexing and selection, right? And in case, so if you have that same file, we'll continue this, okay? So I'm going to create a sample array. Array is equal to NumPy dot arrange 10, 0 to 11, and then I can get an array from 0 to 10. Right, so basically 11 elements within it. So broad bracket indexing and selection. So the way we, looking at this particular thing is that if we do a selection with a square bracket, right? It means that we are basically selecting it by an index, right? So 8 is the index value of this particular array, and then what is in the 8th position, that will be the one that we will be getting, right? So if I run that, I'll be basically getting 8 there, right? So of that particular array. Now, if I run, get a series of value, I can also use the colon bracket. The colon symbol here, and then get those elements, right? So 1 to 5, this is how we get it, right? Then if you want in a range, obviously 0 is something that it starts with. So just wanted to ensure that you know that your indexes start from 0 by default, right? And then we have broadcasting, which we have seen earlier also. So for example, in this particular case, I'm taking a slice of array that is 0 to 5, that is this particular array, right? And I'm assigning 100 to it. So when I assign 100 to it and then show the array, I'm going to get 100, 100 in the first 5 elements, and then rest of the elements will also be present, right? Now, if I just reset this array, and then I'm going to take same slice of array, that whatever broadcasting we did, right? What we're going to do is, instead of like assigning the values directly, I'm just going to take a slice of array from the array that we have, right? So 0 to 6, let's say. And then when you look at the array, you'll get like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if I broadcast it on this particular array, and notice how I broadcasted it, I basically said colon, which means just take all the elements that are available in this slice of array and then replace it with 99. And then you basically get an array which has 99 all across, right? Now, here's the thing. Now, if I have, this original array, and I took a piece of it, and then I sort of replaced it with 99. Now, when I look at the array that we have, you'll notice that it also replaced the values with 99. Now, why does this happen? Now, Python likes to keep things, save memory wherever it can, right? So unless we like explicitly mention that we are going to take a separate copy, Python assumes that whatever data set you're creating, right, in a temporary basis, it's going to impact the original data set, right? So for example, if I do anything on slice of array here, it's going to impact my original data set. And that's the way Python tends to keep things consistent, right? And this is very important topic when we are dealing with a lot of data files, especially when you can easily overwrite your data, and you'll not even notice sometimes that you have overwritten your data, right? So with and then overwritten, and then like if you make changes in one place, we want it to reflect in the root or the source databases, and that's one of the things that that's one of the things that we can do with. I'm just going to repeat it. I'm just going to take another portion here. So I'm going to reset the array here, right? And I'm going to take again the same array, but it's probably this thing, and then I'm going to just take the 3 elements, right? So I'm just going to take 3 elements, right? So in this particular thing, I'll be saying like say 3 elements, right? Now what I do is I just replace 99. I want to replace this 3 element that you have with 99, and then look at the array, right? So if I replace it, obviously I got 999, 99, 99, 99 3 times. But then now when I look at the original array, you'll see that it has been replaced with 999. That's because we did not mention to Python explicitly that we are actually copying it, right? So Python assumes that if you're taking a slice of array from an array that we have here, it should ideally change it in the source array also, right? So that's how this logic works. So the next question obviously is how do we copy it, right? Obviously, and this particular thing that Python does avoids a lot of memory problems, but then we still need to copy, right? And the simple solution is that it should be an explicit call out, right? So if you want a copy of an array, you just say array.copy, and then you get a copy. And now whenever you modify this particular array, right, it's not going to be modified, right? It's not going to modify the original array, that is ARR, right? So that's how these things works. And the same logic essentially works on data frames also. So if you're trying to get a data frame and then get a copy of a data frame, and then you try to modify certain portions of it, it's going to reflect in the source data set, right? So you'll have to explicitly call out when you need to copy, right? So that's some of the things that we want to do, right? Now getting into indexing is something, again, we've seen how default indexing works, right? It begins with 0 and ends with whatever is the last value that you have. But you can also index within a 2D array also, right? So just like a matrix, or let's say, assume things on a coordinate geometry where you have X and Y axis, and you have like 4 coordinates where you can locate a value, right? So quite similarly, you basically have a row and a column way of looking at the arrays, right? So if I run this array, gets an array, and if I say in this particular array, I just want the slice in the first slice, it's basically going to give me an array versus going to give me a value, right? So in this particular case, when a 1D array, you're just going to get a value, but in this case, you're going to get an entire array as an output. How do we then like dive into getting an individual element? So what we do is, assume that this is an array, right? And on top of it, if you put a square bracket, you're basically accessing the output of the array and then getting an individual element, right? So for example, here, if I just take a step further, I just got the first this particular array, and from that particular array, I want the 0th element, right? And if I get that, it's going to be 20, right? So from here, 20, 25, 30, and then we have 20 in this particular element, right? So we get that 20, and then we are able to see it. Now, obviously, this is one way of doing it, and there are multiple situations where we end up doing it, but there's other way of doing it is quite similar to your coordinate geometry. And notice again, the square bracket is getting used here, right? So we are very used to putting round brackets, but here in this case, we're just going to use square bracket to, slice and dice a particular NumPy array, may it be 2D array or a 3D array or 1D array, right? So whichever it is, this thing. A bracket and then gave the values, and then plus I gave a list within this particular array, right? So it by default this guy was a 2D array, right? Versus I just taking this entire element saying 5, 10, 15, 20, 20 like that. So I basically give it in that format. Okay, so moving forward now. So 2D array slicing, obviously now this is a game changer, right? Now this is where a lot of people get confused. It takes time to understand how to slice that particular portion and all that, but let's give it a shot, right? So I'm just going to fire up Excel for some time. Okay, so in this particular portion, right, we basically have things like this. So if you have, let's say 5, 10, and 15, right? So we basically have this sort of array that we have here, right? So sorry, this will be 220. And then right, so we have these elements with us, right? And we basically want a slice of this particular element, right? Now, so when I say slice, it's basically saying, :2, :1, comma, 1, colon, right? So basically what I'm saying is from just take from whichever is the beginning till 2, right? So till 2, I want certain elements, and then from 1, I want all the elements, right? So basically this particular portion gets selected, right? So how does this portion get selected? If this is your 0, 1, and 2, and again this is your 0, 1, 0, 1, and then 2, right? So what we did is we told we want till 2, right? So till 2 row would mean this particular thing, but -1, right? So for example, till here, right? So till 2 would mean this here, 25 till these two rows, right? So that's the thing. And then 1 colon, that is 1 colon. So you begin from 1 and then say colon till the end of it. And that's the array that you selected, right? So basically you're selecting a sub portion of it and then getting this value here, right? So I'm just going to quickly have another array here. Let's say okay, this time I took this particular array, right? Now if I wanted this particular portion, guys, what do you think should be my code? So I just want this particular portion. What do you think I can write here in row comma C format? 2 colon 4, yeah, 2 colon 4, 3 colon 4, okay, 2 colon 4, yeah, and then 1 colon 2. Okay, so let's see if that will be the right answer. Okay, so let's create another array here. and I basically have 5 rows and then these many columns, right? So I'm just going to say so we have 4 columns. So then 5 rows. So we'll take these things also. Yeah, so this is roughly the array that I have there. And then obviously I want a certain portion of it. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to say array underscore new, right? And then I'm going to say 2:4 comma 1:2 the last one that we have there, right? So we basically got 40 and 25, right? So basically this should be just 3, right? So 40, 45, 25, 30, right? So basically when you have till 3, right, it's basically n minus 1, right? So basically 3 minus 2 is 3 minus 1 is 2. So then that's the portion you'll be getting, right? So just remember, when you're using till that value, then you're basically getting that portion. Okay, so I'm just going to give one more problem on this. Okay, so this one we got it. How about this, guys? So I want this particular portion. So how do you think I can get this one? Now this concept is very very important when you're doing test and validation stuff, and then also trying to divide or slice the data also. Till 5. Yeah, so Shukal, till 5 will not be there, right? Because we don't. Yeah, so that just the colon and then 1:3. Yes, exactly. So let's look at that. I'm just going to put, let's say, all of the values you have here and then 1:3, right? So we basically get this portion we have there, right? So that's the way to deal with it, guys. And obviously this is going to be a lot more complex when you're slicing and dicing data, because you'll have a lot of columns and you'll have so many rows that you have to be very specific on what kind of portion you want to extract from certain data, right? And very, very helpful in terms of there. There are some fancy indexing ways. Again, these are just things that we have here, right? So we basically have an array such as this, and then so we basically want to select a certain portion of it, but the way to do it is basically, if I have this particular array and then I give another array with it, right? So basically a list of values within it, right? That is 2, 4, 6, 8. So basically 2, 4, 6, and 8, right? We are able to then interleave certain values and then select it also, right? So versus in this case, you always are reliant on, this sort of a portion, right? I mean, continuous portion. But what if I wanted certain things like this, right? I wanted this, and this, right? So now obviously you can't use these notations, right? So in this case, what you can do is you basically send a list of indexes that you want from this particular array, right? And then so you can basically select it like that, and then you can also change the order that you want to select